Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to this very, very special listening party, and kind of a celebration, I suppose, for the release of Emergent Properties 004. As you can hear in the background, this is Zenith that you've had a little bit of a listen to here, and we'll obviously have a listen to the other track, Outliers, at the moment. But yeah, as I mentioned last night on Facebook, across my socials, Emergent Properties is turning into the little label that could, because for the fourth release in a row, we've had heavy featuring on Beatport. Sebastian Tamayo said T's first EP on the label locked out the top 3 in electronica. That was amazing. Our ADE sampler, which come out just a week after that, scored high placings across multiple genres like organic house, deep house, progressive, of course. Really amazing. And then from there, my own track, Cycles, was the third release. Got a hype pick and was picked up by Hanan Cataneo, which was absolutely amazing. We've had amazing DJ support across the board. And then this fourth release has just been the absolute peak so far, really. So let me talk to you about that, because we are going to talk to the man himself. We're going to talk to Acitone in just a moment. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to take a little look at where we are currently at, shall we say, in the chart placings on Beatport. And one of the things I'm going to do very quickly before we move into that share is I'm going to put a little... There you go. I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to pop that in comments, put that link in to all destinations there. That's lovely. And then everything here. Okay, that's great. So, beautiful stuff. So, we're going to move over now. We're going to share the screen as Zenith comes to an end here. And as you can see, we're live. And it's been a beautiful unfolding of this record label that we decided to start in October of last year. And basically, the latest is that we've been selected at number 4 for the best new techno peak time driving for February by Beatport themselves, which is really, really cool. Thank you to Beatport for that. And also thank you to our amazing distribution partners in Labelworks for being able to get that into the right people's hands. Absolutely fantastic. And also as well, our promo partners at InFlight. Amazing to work with those guys as well. And then last night we climbed as high as, in the releases, we were at number 5. So Reload Recordings have got a little bit ahead of us here, but we are now currently sat at number 6 in the top 10 releases for the genre as well, for peak time and driving techno. And also as well, again, thank you for the really beautiful feature on the front page of the genre as well by Beatport themselves. Really, really amazing stuff. So we're super happy. This is only our 4th release. And again, this label is purely for the MYT community. This is purely for our AAA members who are part of our community that we've built up over the last 4.5 years. And the level of music, as you can hear, you've just heard Zenith, and if you hear anything else on the label, you know the quality is absolutely on point. And we've got music just as good as this, if not a little bit, like even just extending on from this, like insane, coming out in the year. We've got albums coming. We've got incredible various artists. Compilations that we'll be doing around ADE time. That will become a yearly tradition. And we're even looking at scoping to do our first events and our first parties as well. So the MYT community is growing at a hell of a rate of knots. So you can pick this up now exclusively on Beatport and you can find it, as you can see, in the peak time and driving techno genre, and it's going to be available on all streaming platforms, as well as our very own Bandcamp on the 16th of February. So it's exclusively on Beatport right now, and a week on Friday it's going to be available absolutely everywhere else, including our own Bandcamp. So I know those of you who may be watching prefer to support labels and artists on Bandcamp, and understandably so. That's why we have one. That release will be up on the 16th in time for that too. So again, you've just heard the quality of one of the tracks, and what we're going to do now is we're going to move and we're going to talk to the man of the hour. We're going to talk to the man himself, because I've rattled on about how good his music is as it is, and it's best to hear from the man himself. So if he remembers to take himself off mute as I go into a screen share here he is, Geraint Rees himself. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for the introduction.
Well, yeah, you're normally writing them for other people, aren't you? So it makes a change getting them on, doesn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, no pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
No, you're very welcome, mate. You're very, very welcome, as I just kind of cycle through my windows here and get everything on point. Yeah, wonderful stuff. Yeah, great stuff. So talk to me about the EP then, because obviously the EP's got a name. It's got an amazing title of Stellar Kinematics. And you did say to me that you were going through something of a bit of a space, a bit of a space phase, shall we say?
Yeah, so I guess I've always been influenced by sci-fi and dystopian stuff and those sort of vibes, and also sort of the cosmic kind of element. And at that sort of period, these two tracks came together quite quickly for me. Normally I take quite a while, but certainly like the sort of sketch of the tracks came together pretty quickly. One of them, Zenith, was originally called Up in the Clouds, and it was a sample of my son, which then got deleted out of the track completely, and it was him talking about clouds and stuff. And so I always had this kind of idea of it being kind of a stargazing kind of galactic theme.
Mm-hmm.
I was also, sort of being honest, I was listening to a lot of like Romboy at that point.
Oh, nice.
And that was sort of an influence. Along with, I was really kind of trying to use my hardware more and making a conscious effort to play things in live, because I kind of have a musical background. Sometimes I can kind of lose sight of that in the production. I was like, right, I want to play things live. I want to take live cuts of things and then overlay them, and the kind of, in both of the tracks, I think that's the kind of motif in them, the kind of the live bits that are done on my Moog.
Nice.
So yeah, that was the kind of philosophy of it, and it was a good little patch where, like everyone, I have good phases and patches when it's not really happening, and that was a good little phase when those two came together. Outliers had been around for a while. And it started off just with the 303 sound.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of thinking things like Acid Eiffel by Laurent Garnier, that sort of repetitive noise. But then it kind of took on its own new thing, really, after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started with that sample.
Yeah. No, incredible. And
that's the story of them.
Amazing, and it's such a stylistic fit for the label as well. With what it's all about. Obviously, the label being called Emergent Properties. The kind of the whole kind of concept of that layered in with Stellar Kinematics and everything else kind of works really, really nicely, as we kind of hurl ourselves headlong into the future in 2024, shall we say, going God knows where as a species, shall we say. And, again, like I've said this before when we've done listening parties like this in the past, and when we announced the label, like, you guys, in terms of the community, are an emergent property of MYT itself, and it's about providing a platform for you guys to really showcase what you guys can do, and obviously with the success that I've highlighted already on Beatport alone in the last, in the first 4 releases, I should say, or in the last 6 months since we started the label, it's been absolutely insane to see that with, completely organic, no paid advertising at all, just a really amazingly engaged community, great partners, a good strong promo list, which we thankfully inherited from our previous record label, Chapter 24, of which this is the spiritual successor to. And I'm just really proud of it as a platform, and I'm proud of you as part of that, to like really take that on. And obviously we can speak about the process, about how the tracks got to this point, because obviously we'd heard them a couple of times right in the track feedback sessions, didn't we?
Yeah. So I think they've been around for a while, haven't they? In various kind of iterations. And I like I said, I had this phase when they were submitted to MYT, and the feedback was good, good feedback, but with some tips. And I think one of the tips, for example, was about outliers needing to be a bit bolder. For me, it was quite kind of sparse for me, because normally it's like 60 tracks and loads of stuff going on. It's actually, I looked at the project, and it's like about 30 tracks, which is not that many for me. Zenith was way more, which is why I can't go into the project. But but I think one of the things you said was, it could be a bit bolder, and in places, just to take it, elevate it a bit more. And towards the end, when we actually worked on it right at the end, we kind of beefed up the drums a little bit and added a bit more saturation. I played with the volumes of like the leads a little bit more, made them a bit louder in places. And so it's that kind of like critical, surgical feedback, which sometimes you just need those extra elements to take it to where you want it to be. So so it was a really, really useful process, and always good, always to get, great to get professional sort of ears like on it, and give yourself a little bit of distance from it, and then you can come back and kind of attack it again, which was great.
100%, mate. 100%.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, and thank you for all the help with it.
No, absolutely, dude. And obviously that's kind of what I'm here for, but also as well, it's not just me, it's the crowdsourcing of that feedback through the community as well. And again, you've got amazing people in the group who are, I'll be honest with you, in certain cases are just as sharp and professional and insightful as I am. And sometimes they give feedback, and I'm like, shit, yeah, they're right on that one, and it really is amazing.
I think I had feedback on Zenith from Chris Brown for Candles, so that was really useful in terms of arrangement. And I think then when we discussed it, we discussed about making certain adjustments, and I think I gave you 3 versions, and you then selected one. So he said, great, but the arrangement, maybe a couple of tweaks. Again, really, I agreed. There were certain sections where it was dragging a tiny bit and making it a bit tighter. And there was some. I looked in my notes, and there was like some funny comments like, take out all the fat, make it really lean structure. I put little comments, and I was kind of laughing when I was looking back at the project, but that came from that conversation with Chris. So again, other members of the community always giving great feedback as well.
Oh yeah, and Chris is technically like an alumni now. Yeah, and he's a perfect example. Chris, big up to Chris. He's a perfect example of someone who went from like Padawan to Jedi, if you will, because Chris excelled to such a point in his time in the community, and generally, as an artist, with all the success that he had on Bedrock, and obviously there's a story of like, we were part of that in terms of like helping him with Devious, and then it got signed to Bedrock and everything else. But then sort of like graduating to such a point where when I decided to take some time off last year, like I can phone Chris and say, hey, do you want to do my track feedbacks for me?
Absolutely.
And it's a really amazing example of like how the community kind of like self reinforces itself, and the rising tide lifts all the boats. And certainly, mate, you're chief amongst them in terms of like what the achievements are here. And it's just really funny like how the feedback sessions have changed. They've gone from like just pure feedback sessions to almost like A&R sessions for the label now. Which has added an extra edge to it, I think, as well. Like, and I've noticed since we launched the label, the quality of the tracks that we've been getting through the feedback have just exponentially jumped again. So
massively. I'm slightly scared when I tune in about what I'm like, oh my god, everyone's amazing. So that's a good thing because it's like a healthy competition, isn't it? Like, and you hear a lot of different styles of music, genres that perhaps I wouldn't normally operate in, but you get other ideas and other tricks and the sort of feedback that you hear about other people's tracks are sometimes things that you recognize that you're doing in your track. You think, right, okay, great, I can apply that to what I'm doing now. So yeah, it's really good, and I totally agree with you. The quality of the tracks is amazing. Now it's really strong.
Yeah, very much so, and that's one of the reasons why we set the label up with no genre restrictions either. So I didn't really want to operate in a single box, to be honest with you, because like I'm kind of bored of it. I'm kind of bored of like things just representing any one thing, and it doesn't represent us as a community because we've got incredible organic house producers, we've got great progressive house producers, we've got good deeper techier stuff going on. We literally run the whole gamut from like almost like David Morales style, like Jack and House with the likes of Dennis, all the way, and Derek Carter style stuff all the way through to what you're doing and harder again, So it just runs the whole spectrum. So it only serves us to actually run a label that represents that entire spectrum of sound and, really like, to use a very hot word these days, like, to represent the diversity of the community, shall we say. So, it's an amazing thing, mate, and it's an amazing to have you part of it as well. And obviously we had a little bit of a listen to Zenith before. I was just going to ask you in terms of your process. You mentioned you had a Moog before. Like, what kind of Moog is it? Is it like a sub 37, or is it another Moog? Or
I think this is a good story. Actually, I was thinking about this before, and it's an example of not needing the very best thing.
Oh yeah.
Because I think sometimes for ages I need a Moog, I need a sub 37. I need one. I've got to have one to write these melodies. And I know it's like I've got a sub 30 and I bought it pretty cheap.
Wicked.
And a bit too cheap because the big filter cut off on it is actually broken. It crackles really badly. And I've tried to clean it out and it's not that. It's a known fault, and all the rubber on the side of it is kind of falling off, and that's again a known thing with them. So at some point I'll get some wooden sides for it. The keys on it have gone yellow because I've exposed it to sunlight. I've done it, but I love it. And actually, you know what? The engine within it is pretty much the same as a sub 37. It's nearly identical. And so at some point I was like, you know what? You're just making excuses here. You're making excuses. You don't need that thing. You don't need that shiny new thing. Just use that. And I watched some kind of stuff up with Rodriguez Jr. and some people like that, and I like the way they were doing things live and improvising. I was like, right, I'm going to do that for this. I'm going to do some playing in live and just comp it on Ableton. And yeah, it's a great synth. And if you're someone who can't afford a sub 37, get one. It's built like a tank. Be careful for that. If you buy one off eBay, you do so at your own risk. But I despite its flaws, it's great fun, and it's got an amazing sort of soulful sound to it, I think. So very warm.
No, very much so, mate. Stands out in the track as well, and like sits in the mix absolutely beautifully as well, across both tracks. Like really great, really. And
great. The other thing on that, you'll be pleased to hear that I was looking at the project before because I know we were going to try and share it, and that's not quite worked out, but it's got the MYT reverb.
The accelerator. The accelerator.
I thought it was the Valhalla Supermassive, and I was sure it was that. And I looked, and it wasn't. And I was like, "Paul will be pleased."
Get in.
But a huge kind of cavernous reverb is of your design.
Yeah, so. And you know what's really funny as well? Like I was, as you know, I was in South America last November. I was in Buenos Aires. And one of our other alumni, Masano, rolled into town. And obviously I went to the gig and saw Sam and stuff like that. And he actually called me over to the deck during the gig and he just went, "Do you recognise this?" And it was one of his new tracks. And I was like, "Go on." And he's like, That's the accelerator reverb. Like he said, I've used it on every track on Afterlife. I'm like, shit.
really does the trick.
Yeah, it really does, man. It works. It really works. Like it's crackers. Like, and for those of you who haven't got the MYT Accelerator Reverb, you can get it for free. I'll put the link in the description later on. It's a free download, like, so it'd be rude not to have it. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like, we'll zone in because we were going to have a look at outliers, right? And obviously, you know, we've had some audio issues, so it is what it is. But what we'll do is that if we could, would you be able to share your screen and be able to just give us a little bit of a look at the session? And then we'll refer and we'll actually do a playthrough, like a proper listening party, that kind of thing. So yeah, sure, that'd be amazing. Just to see how much of a war zone your DAW sessions are.
Okay, yeah, it's not too bad, this one. So where's my share screen on here?
You should be able to just go to the bottom of the screen there and just hit the big green button there. Probably better if you just do entire screen. There we go.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So, so it looks reasonably neat, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you can get rid of that reporter crash if you want. We can see it a bit more, bit more fully.
Okay, so so I mean, I can talk you through a few things. So it starts off with you can see a jazzy ride. There you go. Who doesn't love a jazzy ride?
Very true, mate. Very true. Jazzy rides indeed.
I think the reason I quite like this is it's like quite syncopated but loose. So there's a couple of elements I put into the track and took out because I felt like it slowed the flow of it down.
Yeah.
And then obviously we've got like the kick. I was gonna show you this actually, how to put too many things on a kick drum. I've frozen it. There were so many things that I've frozen.
My God, he put an amp on it as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to talk about.
Oh,
actually.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So this is a trick I've picked up for your kick drums. If your kick drum doesn't have enough snap on the top end, you need a more click on it. So you can just add amp on the standard setting. Don't touch anything, and you just ease up the dry wet a tiny bit, and it gives you a little click on the kick drum.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow.
So that, and also disperser, which is kilohertz disperser. That's another thing that can create a zappy kick noise. So again, there are two things I do when the kick's not quite got. So I remember in the past sometimes I've submitted tracks and you've like it needs the kick needs a little bit more snap to it. So these are two ways that you can do that. So other than that, obviously we've got like a kind of low end loop going on. I think I used for my pads and stuff in it. You can see it's Jupiter, Hive, and Triton. Things that just a high string on Triton. The other two are kind of the lush pads that are in there.
Very cool.
It's quite organized. You'd be proud here.
I was about to say, like, you know.
I'm not gonna lie. I may have done some slight editing.
Sure you did. I'm sure you did.
Not much though. This one, Zenith was much messier. Like I said, it was about 80 tracks, and it wasn't too tidy. But this is not too bad. You know, there's a bit of unlabeled stuff, and again, that's sort of for me, the way my brain works is I kind of go with the creative kind of flow of it, and I'm making lots of connections, and then I reach a point where I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting completely overwhelmed by this. And I think if you start feeling like that, that's the time to organize and take a break, come back and get it more organized. I know some people work in a really much more organized fashion, but I tend to work like that. I want to get it out as quick as possible, and then I'll go back and start color coding and sort of organizing so that it doesn't get too much overload on your brain.
Amazing.
I think in terms of the only other thing we can talk about, perhaps you can see here, you know, I said about the live takes and the comping.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that in terms of like, you know, how that made its way into the record, and you know what was the so you said the starting point was obviously, you know, stuff on the Moog and whatever, and it's like, well, you know, once you've got that main idea, like how do you lay it into the DAW, how do you lay it into Ableton and then frame everything around it? That's the really interesting point for me.
Yeah, I started off really with the sort of acid line, and I
Hmm.
got that kind of groove going, and then I played in these runs in MIDI. I don't know if they're still there. I think there they are. You see the runs kind of in MIDI, and I did different ones, different kind of runs around the key that it was in.
Hmm.
Then I comped them in various different ones. You can see there's
Nice.
like one sort of five different ones. Um, and certainly later on in the track, I don't know how far we're in, they're kind of overlaid over each other, and it's
Hmm.
very much the same in Zenith. So you've got like one playing an octave above, one playing an octave below, one playing harmonies, and they all kind of are layered over the top of each other. What you ended up, I mean, the move's got a super rich sound anyway, but it sounds super kind of warm, and it's almost like an electric guitar. I think the
Mm.
like with a distortion pedal on the Moog, it reminds me of that, which is I think why you've got people like Bodzin who almost like plays it like an electric guitar. It's kind of
Yeah,
quite
very
kind of
true.
showy almost. Um, and it's got that kind of fat feel to it. So yeah, so I just comped all these different layers in, then cut and pasted them. Did some takes I liked, some takes I didn't like, and picked the best, and did some that were harmonies over the top of each other. And that was it
Wow,
really.
amazing. Yeah, it's super cool, man. I mean, it's great to just get an insight. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like the whole process and how it all kind of comes together, and just the layering aspect of it, and like kind of how it all kind of starts to sit together and come up with the final
Yeah,
product. It's really cool, man.
I was looking then I couldn't see where the last bit was. So there's the first bit with some
Hmm.
layers, and then at the end you can see it's super layered here. You can see
Wow.
you can see harmony take, high end vibrato, harmony take, tuning an issue. I've layered it. Second half okay. I've
Mm.
got all these, and you can see I've just laid it to help me decide which ones to use with which
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. It's almost
Uh,
layered like a bloody Billie Eilish vocal or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's that many layers to it. Like, it's pretty cool.
so yeah, and I had a lot of fun with that because it allowed me just to play in, be quite free, go really
Mm.
crazy with the LFO on the Moog, which is super cool. You can just get the LFO modulating the frequency, and a couple of places that I did that really sort of crazy, and it sounds great,
Yeah.
So I enjoyed. It was good fun doing it, and I think the one thing I took from these two tracks is to try to do more of that, so it's more fun. I think we're all guilty sometimes of, sitting behind the screen and just
Mm.
clicking a mouse, and it can get not fun.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, definitely.
And so that's necessary. Sometimes it's necessary when you're coming down to, the mix down and stuff like that. You've got to kind of just do the work.
Mm.
But the creation phase, like you always say, if it's not fun, you're doing something wrong.
No, 100%, mate. And I think I love this concept of using the comping, because I think people make a mistake of thinking that the comping is only there to be used for vocals because of the
Yeah.
association with vocal comping. I mean, even I just made that association with the comment about, the Billie Eilish vocal. But the fact that you've used it in such an intelligent way, and actually that liberates you a lot, right? Because I'm sure there was lots of different takes where you did lots of different things and gave yourself a lot of options, and then figured out what the best route forward was. It just to kind of like completely get everything that's in you out of you, shall we say, and making sure that the optimal version, the optimal reality, shall we say, of what's going on with these synths actually happen in the context of the final production. And then being able to get into more sort of performative aspects of like automation and stuff like that as well. It's great because it really brings the track to life. And, one thing that we've been talking about a lot on the feedback sessions, even last week, Jonas, one of our newer members, out there in Copenhagen, like we were talking about, like, what is the X factor, like what's missing from a lot of modern tracks, and it's storytelling.
Yeah.
And the fact is that facilities like this, especially when used in conjunction with hardware, they allow you to tell more elaborate stories because you've got better editing options in order to get that story told in the right way. I'm always, there's a couple of things that like I always am reminded of when we talk about stuff like this. It's the Daft Punk quote of, computers are not musical instruments. You know, they're giant tape machines with better editing options, which is something I add to it. And then, you know, the other one, which is, you know, most people make music the way I do my taxes. You know, it's getting out of that, and like you said, there's a time and a place for that type of thing. But that's why I've got a complete control in front of me. I've got a machine here. I've got elaborate, you know, iPad interfaces. I've got a push just behind me there. It's about, even though I'm entirely in the box, I try and get out of the box as much as possible. And that's what you've managed to do, and get the balance right. Because integrating hardware into a setup like this is sometimes quite challenging, right?
It is. It is, and there have been times when I've just gone back to entirely in the box. Like you say, there's different ways to do it. I use push as well, and I love machine as well for the hands-on kind of aspect. But I've been guilty, and I think these two tracks were a reaction to the fact I've been guilty of kind of going into the box and just kind of losing the fun a bit. But yeah, as I said, I think there are different ways to do it, whether it's using push, but getting some hands-on control, it's really important, I think. And another thing I've been doing recently is, what works quite well is just doing a live take, getting the bare drums down and doing a live take of a synth. Imagining the kind of arrangement in your head in one go, and that sometimes can just give you the arrangement. And because sometimes, certainly from my perspective, I can get very much lost in the details and getting and having that kind of, right, I've done my audio take, that's what my song's going to look like, that's the shape of it, I know where my build up and my drop down, and I've not done this many times, but on my last remix that you heard the other night, that's what I did. I recorded in the and it wasn't a hardware unit, it was micro, a mini freak, but it was the plugin, and I just recorded it all in, and it kind of gave me the structure, and it just made it easier than kind of shifting blocks around. So that's something worth experimenting. And it's all experimenting, really. It's whatever, different things work for different people. It really does, and different brains work differently. But certainly for me, using a bit of hardware or jamming some stuff in is something that excites me more.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And again, it brings that humanity, right? It brings that, you know, element of play into it as well. And you know, I remember a long time ago talking to Richie Horton about that. We did some mentoring together in Ibiza, like about 10-12 years ago now, and he talked about how for a lot of his stuff, what he would do at that time was do incredibly long takes, like we're talking up to an hour of stuff. And then he'd go back through it like a complete live jam with, like, you know, drums and synths and everything else, like really elaborate. But then he would find the sections, which was like, okay, I really like that 2-minute section. Oh, that feels like a breakdown. There's the intro, there's the outro, right? And then he would kind of bring everything else down and kind of like cut everything else away, strip everything else out. And then he'd end up with like 7 or 8 sections, which he then would decide on an order, shall we say, and then figure out the connective tissue with automation or other things, and then that was his track.
Yeah, because I think there's a certain raw energy, isn't there, to when you're just playing along and jamming, you get certain moments where it sounds great, and then to try and, if you're just trying to recreate that through automation, sometimes you know, it can work, and a lot of times I've done that myself, but maybe you lose some of the feeling.
Yeah, and you're going to do stuff in the moment that you're not going to do any other way, right? Especially, you know, again, you could talk about mapping a MIDI controller, and that is like, you know, and that's something that I've always loved to do, which is, you know, especially when I'm working with plugins, because I've got the push in front of me, you know, I love mapping to different controls and being able to do like long passes of like the entire track.
Yeah.
And then having that automation pass and just doing it over and over and over again on lots of different parameters, and it really brings the track to life. A lot of that.
I know you recommended Map 8.
Yes, I did see you're using that, right?
Yeah, I think in both there's some use of Map 8, and some of the mappings have gone now because I've frozen things and that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure on one of them it was the drums, and like there was some like white noise and reverb, and I did it all in live because I wanted the kind of, I just felt good to do it in that way. Often I'd just draw it in, but I'd done it with Map 8. instance. But again, I guess it's like bringing a bit of a fun element to it and kind of feeling like you're almost like DJing it. I think you've made that analogy before.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely, and it's about bringing that in. Like, so if if anyone's watching and wondering, whether or not there's what's the X factor, like, what's the missing element in my tracks. A lot of the time, it's actually playing with the tracks and again bringing that human element of performance to it. 100%, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, this is fascinating, mate. It's really, really cool, and I'm really, really happy to kind of see it all laid out in a really beautiful way, and some really great tips for people as well.
No problem. Cheers.
Amazing.
No, I don't know, how useful it is to people, but it's what everything works differently for different people. But this is what's currently working for me. It could all be different in a few weeks.
6 months from now, it's completely different, right?
That was rubbish.
Yeah.
Don't ignore.
But I actually think that's a really valid point as well. In that, like, I think people tend to get a little bit too attached to a way that's always worked for them, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why, like, I work in different DAWs. Is that, like, if I feel like I'm getting a bit stale in Ableton, like, I'll jump over and do some stuff in Cubase, or I'll jump over and do some stuff in Logic or Bitwig or whatever, to try and keep things fresh. Because a lot of the time, it's not the music that you're bored of, it's the way that you're actually making the tracks. That's boring because you've done it the same way for so long. So it's just about getting different looks with stuff. And again, that's another really valid entry point for hardware as well.
Yeah, and I think there's I've heard quite a few good, setting a limitation for yourself, deciding you're going to start focus on a different instrument, like say using a hardware or say, right, I'm going to just really use push for this and really focus on getting the most out of push, because I think there's definitely something to be said for focusing on one of your instruments and getting a lot out of that and becoming really an expert in it as best you can, or treat it as an exercise in kind of up leveling yourself on that particular instrument.
Oh yeah.
Because I've bought other pieces of gear sometimes, and I've just not used them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just that there because I need to go through that process of really learning it first to get to be able to do it. And as I said, in these two tracks, it was with the Moog and kind of falling in love with it again and the most out of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, for me, it's been like I'm kind of my own worst enemy in a way, because like I've owned lots of hardware, but as you can see, I've got absolutely none of it around me, because I always end up selling them. So I had a virus for a while. I mean, I made the joke that I bought the virus and it was the only virus I wanted during the pandemic. but yeah, so I ended up getting rid of that because it wouldn't stay in time, and I kind of lost patience with it. I've had like Korg mini logs and friggin' Behringer the Behringer Model D and stuff like that as well, and I just kind of like lose patience with them a lot and just end up back in the box. But a lot of it's to do with the fact that like I'm very portable, do you know what I mean, in terms of like I'm always traveling, so it's sometimes difficult to have a room full of equipment. So one of the things I'm actually currently thinking of, as I kind of like I'm going to be relocating to like parts of South America and stuff like that this year, is to have like maybe some smaller bits of kit, like the Roland boutique gear, stuff like that, to kind of get a feel of this. Because like the one thing I would really like to have actually as part of my arsenal is the SEO2, the bass synth. It's kind of like almost like because my favorite bass synth is Monarch. Like in terms of a plugin, I absolutely love it, and I personally think it can give anything a run for its money. But to have like that playability of something in a very compact form, I think would be very cool for the portable digital nomad, shall we say?
Yeah, I've heard the SCO2 is really, really good. I've got the Torres, which is the
Pioneer one. Yeah, I've heard good things.
And it's basically one voice of a Prophet 6, and that does the bass line on this track. But there are other projects where I don't use. I've done quite a few recently where I was using nothing, no output, and it was for that reason. It was because I was having issues with my timing. Now there's a box called a Midranome, which I'm going to buy, which is syncs everything.
Like a MIDI box, basically, that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to try that. My syncing's sort of working again now. It went through a phase. It's got different moods. Is it going to play along
Mate,
this
and
week?
USB and stuff like that are like very misleading as well, to be honest with you, because sometimes, like, I can remember doing like quite elaborate setups for the likes of Arthur Baker and the Martinez brothers, or for Sasha in the studio in LA, and it's like sometimes an old school MIDI connection's all you need, actually. Like, keep it simple.
Yeah. Well, it's all working. Touch wood, it's all working.
Famous last words. Now you've said it in public, mate.
Exactly. But I think I will buy this box. I've actually spoke to the developer. He's a really good guy.
Oh, super cool.
He's like a little independent. He was a Kickstarter, I think moving forward. I mean, I had a similar problem. So on Zenith, it actually started out. I had a Behringer MS1,
right,
and it was a blue one. And it sent out absolutely batshit crazy MIDI signals, and I tried everything. Yeah. I tried everything. I was literally playing little bits in, then it crashed the project, and then I'd have to play in a little bit more, and then it crashed the project. And in the end, I replaced it with a layered approach of different, like the Model 82, which is the Soft Tube 101 recreation.
Oh, nice.
I used that on one channel. I used the TAL one on another channel, and I just recreated it with. But I had to get what I wanted. I found I had to use different layers, and I think possibly one tiny segment of the MS1 recording remained, but I couldn't get it to work. Whatever I did, it was killing my projects. So I got rid of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Passed it on to someone else. It was boxed and everything. Yeah. I think it was it's a known problem with some of the blue MS1s. So if you're buying an MS1, don't buy a blue one.
You keep buying these synths with known problems, mate. Do you know what I mean? That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, that is the problem.
Some of them I love anyway.
Yeah.
Still like the movie.
Yeah.
The MS1 had to go.
Yeah. I mean, like, one of my biggest regrets, like, we'll have a listen to Outliers in a minute to kind of close things out, but one of the biggest regrets that I had was, in a way, kind of both buying and having to sell the Virus, because I'm such a lover of that synth. Absolutely love the thing. And
was it a Polar one as well?
It was a TI2 Polar. Yeah.
Right, that's amazing.
Insane sounds, like absolutely insane. But I think it's past, was it Catalina? I think it was past that operating system. Access Music ended support for the plugin, and you just couldn't get hold of anyone.
Yeah.
So it was like you chose like third-party librarian stuff, like the Mystery Island stuff or anything like that, and it just never hung. It never hung together. Like, I wanted it to be able to like run in time, because one of the things I really loved on it was the arpeggios.
Yeah, and when you've invested that much money in something, it needs to be really sounding fun.
Oh yeah, totally, mate. I mean,
beautiful synth.
Beautiful synth, and again, they're still going for like not cheap second hand. So I got the thing, and it was absolutely perfect. Like, it was beautiful. It was in perfect condition, and thankfully, like, the value on them hasn't shifted much. So I actually managed to sell it on for exactly what I paid for it. And ironically, the funny thing is that the guy who bought it off me was using Windows, and they're running perfectly in time in Windows and everything else. So it's the only time where I was jealous of a Windows user, to be honest with you. But other than that, like, that, I didn't regret getting rid of it. But almost every other bit of hardware that I've had, like, say for example, the pads on my track Warrior, which come out on Bedrock, they were done on a Korg Minilog, and I'll be honest, they're lovely, man. They're really, for what they are, they're absolutely brilliant. For the price and everything. That was one that I really shouldn't have let get away. But hey, we could sit there and talk about gear all night, couldn't we? So why don't we have a little listen to Outliers?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Happy days. All right, well, I shall, swap back to regular screen sharing, and we shall go to the desktop here. Absolutely spot on. And I am just going to zoom in on everything here, and we're going to go to Logic. There we go. Perfect. And we're going to get rid of... That's absolutely cool. All right, and we are going to have a little listen to Outliers. We've already had a little listen to Zenith. So yeah, man, I mean, in terms of like the whole thing, obviously you've got this really lovely, you know, intro and everything. I am going to speak over the intro because I want everyone to buy it, basically, so, you know, tough shit. You know, it's like back in the days where you wouldn't give people a clean kick drum. Speaking of the kick, mate, kick is absolutely stunning on this, mate.
It's funny.
Absolutely top notch.
I mean, it should be with the amount of processing.
No, yeah, now I've seen it, I understand it. I'll tell you what, that click the amps give, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Alright, well, let's have a listen then, and here we go. Really hear that moog now in the lead, can't you?
Yeah, that's a comp bit. Few bits.
Nice. The little details in this section. As I said, I love the little details in this section with the phasers and flanges on the hi-hats and stuff. It's really cool.
Cheers, but I think I've both got a little bit of phase on fun kind of going on the two tracks. Again, with the theme, there was quite a few similarities between the two. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, amazing. definitely hear you pimping on the keys there towards the end with the filters and that, like.
Going berserk with like a wind in my hair, like that. On the edge of a cliff.
Yeah. You need that sign in the music store from Wayne's World, on your wall, like there is no stairway to heaven.
I demand dry ice.
Amazing. Just such a solid track, dude, but so expressive as well. Like, I mean, I love that reference of like Acid Eiffel as well. It's definitely got that kind of vibe to it, man.
Yeah, cheers, dude. Yeah, sort of in the background of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, mate. You know what I mean? There's a whiff of it, shall we say, through the acid and everything else, mate.
whiff of French cheese.
whiff of Gallic acid.
That's it. Not sure what that smells like, but
well, yeah, I don't think I want to know, to be honest with you. I don't know, the things you come out with on a live stream, eh? Fun, innit? Absolutely all fun and games. So yeah, amazing stuff, dude. Like, thanks for the insight into the creative process, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And dude, like, congratulations, like, on the success of the release, man. It's been beautiful, like, hearing the tracks in various different iterations, and then seeing it come out into the world, and kind of prove what we thought the tracks were, shall we say, because we always, like, as a community, and like even me and you, we always suspected that the music was very strong, and to have it proved out with the success of the releases is really, really cool, man.
Yeah, well, what a great platform and an amazing kind of label. It's just great. Like, I sort of have done, obviously I've written bios and stuff for some in the community, and people like Sebastian. There's so many talented artists, and it's just great that their music is getting out there and getting heard by the right people, because it deserves to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, so thanks for the opportunity for these tracks. As I said, I couldn't think of a better home for them. So.
And ongoing, mate. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be always a home for you here. Do you know what I mean? That's the whole idea. It is, I mean, not to sound like Vin Diesel in a Fast and Furious movie, but like, it is a family at the end of the day, and we've cultivated this kind of movement, shall we say, over the last 4.5 years, and done it the hard way through the pandemic and everything else, and we saw each other through that, and as I've said on many occasions, when the time came last year, you guys basically forced my hand into doing a label. It wasn't in the plan for me to do another record label, because the three of us gave everything to Chapter 24. I gave so much, I friggin' got the friggin' tattoo, like, right there, but it was one of those things that it had to be. We just had to do it, because the quality of the music was just too high, and it was just getting too painful watching people not get signed. It was just like, well, and again, it's Seb, who you mentioned before. Like, the irony is that I snapped one day and just went, right, fuck it, if nobody else is signing you, I am. And then like a week after I made that decision, he gets signed to bloody Traum. I mean, which is what he was aiming for years. So the irony of that situation. Only that. So yeah, it's amazing. Like we said, we've got so much amazing music coming. We've got 2 releases coming in March, and again, we're looking towards doing an ADE party this year. So hopefully we'll have some details on that, like not soon, but later in the year, shall we say. But we are working on it now, and just trying to take this from strength to strength, and not have it just be another record label that's attached to an education community, an education platform. It's like, we're trying to run this as seriously, at least as seriously as we did with Chapter 24, and try and really sort of scale similar kind of heights and maybe more. So you're in the right place, mate, and honestly, I can't wait to hear more of your music and release more of it. And again, what's going to get interesting is that when we start going out to get your stuff remixed by bigger artists, and you starting to remix other people in the community as well, and the whole thing's just so self-reinforcing and self-growing.
Yeah, love to do that. Like I said, there's so many varied and kind of exciting artists. Dennis, just to name one. Sebastian, absolutely amazing at what he does.
Yeah.
So
insane.
So,
we keep uncovering them.
Yeah,
exactly. We keep uncovering them. It's like, we've just had like loads of new members sign up in January, and it's like every single one of them are like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
where do we keep finding these people? Do you know what I mean?
There's been quite a few new members as well. You
Yeah.
know, like I say, I've not listened to all of the latest feedback streams, but when I've hopped on, I've been like, wow, it's somebody else doing something amazing. You know? So
yeah. I am guilty of spending less time on Beatport than I used to, because basically, like, when I play sets now, it's almost like wall to wall your guys and stuff, which is nice for me because no one else has got it. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it's kind of like ultimate kind of like pool of unreleased music, which, you know, if there's a DJ that doesn't like having stuff that other people don't like or don't have, then, you know, what are you going to do? But yeah, thanks once again, mate. Absolutely top notch. And again, congrats on all the success, mate. And, you know, looking forward to, you know, seeing what you do next. So what have you got on the slate next? Like, what's coming from you? What's your next public appearance? I believe you're getting in with my old buddy from Barcelona, Lars, soon, Mr. F Devoid.
Yeah, I'm appearing on. I think I'm appearing on his stream, but I'm not sure when. Might be this week, might be next week. And again, talking because again. So there's 3 people really. Yourself, for yourself, Lars. Jim Rivers helped me a lot at the start as well.
Big shout to Jim.
Yeah, great guy. And he's getting behind the tracks as well, which is fantastic. And Ian O'Donovan has been another super. But actually, the thing I've just done, which you've heard, is a remix for Andy Neal, who's another good friend and a fellow Liverpudlian, and that's coming out on a French label, Fourier Transform. I'm not sure when, but that remix is pretty much done. It took me a little while. I am appearing with Lars on his birthday in Preston, but I believe it's like a private invite only sort of party. Yeah, so it's like a very small capacity. And the organizer of that is someone called Claire Marshall, who's also been supporting my music, and so so that's going to be great to see him for his birthday, because he's an absolutely fantastic guy and very funny.
Yeah, he really is. He really is. Yeah. I think they invented the word avuncular for him. Do you know what I mean? It's like, basically, he avuncles very well, or at least he was with Mr. Lorraine last week in Barcelona, because they were at my gig in Barcelona last week. Yeah,
he said it was great. He said he enjoyed it.
Amazing.
So that's what I've got on the horizon, and then just making some new music to get out to labels. I've got quite a few close to finishing, but aren't finished, and then I've got loads. I've got a Trello board, as you've taught, full of color-coded different states of projects, and I'm trying to
the warboard of doom, basically. Like,
there's loads. This is getting ridiculous. So I'm gonna have to start shifting some along to the done pile.
Oh yes. I taught you well, mate. I taught you well. Now it's amazing. It's great that you've got so much on the slate, and, you know, obviously big up to Lars, big up to Jim Rivers, big up to Ian, and also as well, like, just a big thank you to all the DJs who have been supporting the release on promo as well, because we got some amazing feedback from promo from the likes of Anthony Pappa, Steve Parry, Lehar, Olderic, Severino from Horse Meat Disco. And it's really funny with Severino, because, like, every time we send him stuff, it's like the stuff that I think he will absolutely hate, that he comes back and goes, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah. So I'm delighted with the feedback. It's been really positive. So.
Yeah, very much so. And, you know, again, onwards and upwards, mate. Onwards and upwards. And we shall obviously be continuing to, you know, extend the reach of this release in the next few weeks and into the months to come. And again, like, we're interested in obviously releasing music from the community, but, you know, it's something I've definitely taken over from the Chapter 24 days, is that it has to have a timeless quality to it. And one of the things that, in closing, I'll say about both tracks is I'm very confident in the fact that people will go back to them a year, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now and listen to them and go, shit, that still sounds fresh.
Cheers, mate. Really appreciate that.
No, absolutely, dude. And, you know, it's absolutely well deserved, mate. So thank you very much once again for joining me for this evening. And, you know, helping people to not just have to put up with the sound of my bloody voice rattling on the whole time. At least you cut into it a little bit for us.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Nice one. That will do it for this evening. Thank you for tuning into this exclusive listening party on YouTube. If you haven't given us a subscribe, you know what to do. I'm going to do that YouTuber thing where, you know, you say click the like button, do the algorithm thing. What is it the kids say? Smash the like button, get notified, ring the bell, whatever it is. And we've got a lot more coming. I've been shooting a lot of video. Give us a follow on Instagram at MakeURTransition. And again, just have a look at our website as well, transition.studio. If you want support like this, if you want to be developed as an artist to create similar success that we have for Mr. Gerrit Rees, aka Acitone, and our very own label, then please do visit. We do memberships for our community. You get support, you get courses, you get one-to-one tuition, you get the track feedback. And again, when the music is good enough, we will sign it and we will release it, and we will give you the same kind of support that we have given Gerrit and all the other artists on Emergent Properties. So, with that being said, enjoy the rest of your day, whatever it is you're doing. Look after yourselves, big up, and I shall see you guys shortly. Much love.